Investor, you're an expert.
There we go, son. We on.
Yes, sir. Welcome to the Blueprints Vision
We working it out. We have a name next time.
No Name Podcast.
Yeah.
We got a special guest, Jordan, Bitcoin kind of sort of expert.
Connoisseur.
Connoisseur.
Yes.
Okay, cool. We're going to talk about Bitcoin today. For people who don't know, Jordan, what is a Bitcoin?
A Bitcoin is a type of digital currency. If you want to put it in layman terms, it's kind of like the equivalent of a digital gold.
Okay.
So how do we get Bitcoin?
How do you get Bitcoin? That's an interesting question, huh? There's many ways to acquire Bitcoin. One way is using your electricity and your computer power to mine Bitcoin, right? In theory, it would be free for you, but I mean, you would have the cost of whatever electricity it takes to mine the Bitcoin.
What you mean by mine the Bitcoin?
So by mine Bitcoin, you have to think about it as there's an algorithm, right? Since it's all digital, it's all part of this blockchain, and that's a whole nother thing. We'll get into that, but it is a part of Bitcoin, right? So there's an algorithm that has to be solved, and you have these computers that it's kind of like a Rubik's Cube. It's constantly figuring out a Rubik's Cube, right? You have these blocks, and within each block, now there used to be, before this year, there was 12.5 Bitcoin that was a part of each block, right? There was this thing that just happened that's called a halving. And what the halving means is that the reward got cut in half to where it's now 6.25 Bitcoin that you can now acquire from solving that Rubik's Cube, right? So it's a deflationary currency, which means that inflation will never come into play. There's only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be mined and ever come into existence. Has never been hacked. Yes, there's been exchanges that have been hacked and things like that,
Okay.
Bitcoin itself has never been hacked, right?
Okay.
So you have to kind of think about it like it's a bank that can't be robbed, right? Itself, all right? It's kind of like Fort Knox. Fort Knox has never been robbed, but Chase Bank has been robbed, PNC Bank has been robbed, and things like that, in theory.
Okay. So how do other cryptocurrency match with Bitcoin?
So other cryptocurrencies came into existence from Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency, right? Mm-hmm. It came into existence after the financial crisis and the global crash back in 2008, 2009. The first Bitcoin was mined in 2009, and it was mined by, you can call it a group, you can call it a person, nobody really knows, but it was by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto, right? And Satoshi Nakamoto is still, nobody really knows the true identity of who he is or who they are to this day. But they mined the first Bitcoin. They own the most Bitcoin too also, which is estimated to be roughly around 1 million Bitcoin, right? And in today's dollars, that would be roughly, I guess, about... it's a few billion. A few billion, yeah. Like I think it's like roughly, it's over $100 billion. I have to do the math, like to what today's market is, but yeah, it's over $100 billion.
So Bitcoin right now is 9,000, right?
Yeah, so I think this morning it was roughly around 9,200.
So you times that by
a million.
A million.
By a million.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 9,200 times a million. And that'll
about
give you
$1 billion and something like that, I guess. Bad with math.
I'm not great with math, but yeah, I mean, let's just say it is plenty. It's the most in existence, right? There's no corporation that owns anywhere close to that. I think the closest is Grayscale, and they own like roughly about 60,000 Bitcoin, right? Because it's kind of tough to acquire.
Right.
There has to be supply and demand, right? Somebody has to be willing to sell that Bitcoin to you, or you have to be willing to mine the Bitcoin yourself, right? Which you're still at a standstill because you can only mine so many during a time frame until that block is solved, right? There's only so many blocks at a time. right? So it just kind of builds upon itself. So like I said, there's only 21 million that's ever going to come into existence. And if you think about it in gold, right, somebody could go out and find like I'm not saying like the chances are stupid high, but somebody could go out in some land that they own that has never been touched and go digging and possibly find some gold, right?
Right.
You don't know what the cap is on gold, right? It has a unlimited amount that can be produced, right? It comes from the earth and things like that. But with this, you know, there's only 21 million. It'll never go higher than that, right? So you have that store of value there too also in that, in my opinion.
Okay. Question, with other cryptocurrency, can you trade and buy Bitcoin with other crypto? How does that work?
Yeah, so like I said, it was the first cryptocurrency, and there were many other ones birthed from it, right? They figured out that Bitcoin is awesome, but it's missing this or that or this or that, right? They took the technology that it was built on and made their own path, right? Certain other people, right? So for instance, there's one, the second largest cryptocurrency in the market is called Ethereum. And Ethereum is basically what Bitcoin should have been in some people's eyes, because it comes with the ability to add smart contracts. And with smart contracts, you can encrypt and enable different things, right? Like, depend upon who you ask, and some of the experts and devs, they will say that the roof is limitless, right? You can program cars, you can program digital finance, you can program the stock market on there. Like, all this stuff could literally be shifted from today's finance and market into this, to where it's a trustless system, right? You don't have to trust that, hey, I owe you $5. I gave it to Ant to give it to you, but you got to trust that Ant's going to deliver it to you, right? Whenever you think about it on a grand scale for businesses, whenever you put stuff in escrow, you're dependent upon a whole nother corporation, third party, to deliver this with trust, right? Because what if this wire transfer doesn't go through, right? What if somebody ran off with your money, right? Then what does that leave you? So now in this aspect, you have a trustless system where I put this money in this escrow, in this smart contract, it's going to be delivered to you on these terms, whether it's a day or it's an amount or this or that, whatever you set up, it'll be delivered to them without having anybody to have to say yes or no, right? It is what it is, black and white. Nobody can hack into it. Nobody can change it. Once it's there, right? Right. Which is, I believe, to be an amazing system, because you eliminate the third party input, right? Mm-hmm. Because whenever you have all these people that's coming in with this or that and different agendas, different angles and things like that, you have a lot of stuff that you got to look out for, right? Whenever it's just something like you hit this, boom, done. We moving on with our business. It kind of changes things in my book.
So they're going to take some jobs away from a lot of people.
They're going to take some jobs from a few people, yeah. Yeah.
A few or a lot?
I mean, it depends the way that you look at it, because at the same time, whenever you're eliminating jobs, you're also creating jobs, right? Because somebody has to program these things. Somebody has to be a developer. Somebody has to do this and that. Yeah. It just might mean that there's going to be a shift in different things, kind of like whenever the housing market tanked, right? Back in like 08, 09, right? All these realtors that went out of jobs, they didn't know what to do. They figured it out, right? There was a paradigm shift. Things changed, and they moved on. It's kind of going to be the same thing. Yes, technology will eliminate some jobs, but it's not like it hasn't already been eliminating jobs too at the same time.
Right. But we're talking about currency, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I personally feel, I don't know how y'all feel, but I feel like the finance industry needs an overhaul. Is that fair to assume?
No.
Right?
Right.
Right. I mean, just about everything needs an overhaul.
Yeah.
Whenever you look at, so one of my favorite movies is The Big Short, right? Mm-hmm. And at the end of the movie, like it really hits, what's his name? Steve Carell's character, right? He was like, they knew it was going to happen. They knew it was going to happen. They knew that they would get a bailout and they didn't care what happened. They did this stuff knowing that the taxpayer dollars were going to eliminate every wrongdoing that they did, and they did not care. So that's what I look at is like whenever you take out somebody like that, okay, I'm sorry that you lost your $1 million salary, right? Because a better system got to put in place and eliminated your corruption, your wrongdoing, and things like that too also, right? Because when you talk about people losing their jobs, right? How many people lost their jobs during that financial crisis caused by these people too also, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you eliminate that happening, then how many jobs are you actually saving too at the same time? So that's a fair argument I have.
Yeah. So with Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like stock though, where you can just go out and just buy it.
No, it is. It is. So all right,
Don't
you
you
got
have to have? I can't think of what the account is. Don't you have to like set up 2 different accounts?
all right. So that's how it used to be, right? Just like any market is growing, right? You got Cash App.
Yeah.
You can buy Bitcoin on Cash App
Okay.
directly from your bank account. All right. Your card, debit card, whatever you use, cash coming in on your Cash App. If you got somebody in here, they'll be like, all right, man, that's $30. Boom, throw it in Bitcoin right there without even having to exchange anything from any bank or anything like that.
But
Cash
it
App is
a
one of my
charge.
favorites. Yeah, there is a fee. I mean, just like anything, right? There's going to be a fee. There's a commission or something like that, but it's not anything abnormal, right? Like anything that's going to be on E-Trade Fidelity or anything.
With Bitcoin, you have the option to buy fractional or no?
Mm-hmm. You do not have to buy a whole Bitcoin, right? If you got $20 that you want to throw in, you throw in $20. If you got $5 you want to throw in $5. It's going to buy you 0.000 whatever amount of a Bitcoin. And that's the way that I did, right? Before I got my first Bitcoin, I threw in $25. And then I just kind of watched it. I just wanted to see the way that it fluctuated because I kind of started dabbling with stocks here and there before I bought the first Bitcoin. And this was after 2017. And if you talk to anybody that's been in Bitcoin before 2017, it went nuts in 2017, right? It went from literally right below $1,000 all the way up to $20,000 in a matter of months, right? Because of attention, right? There was a bull run. People were made, millionaires were made. High school students, college students, people just figuring out what the hell it was. They looked at it as 2017 was basically, I could take money, throw it in here, wait a minute, and I'm going to get back 3x whatever I put in here, right? Not even batting an eye. If you caught it at the right time, anywhere between like October to December, you made money hands down, right? On the flip side, with that much attention comes people that were in way down here that's like, this is it for me, I'm getting out, right? Those people that were in before all of this mainstream attention, they sold at the top $20,000 and it started to come back down and it crashed all the way down to $3,200, right? So imagine being one of those people that bought in at 19, 18, 16, anything like that, just to watch this thing that was making you so much money, you thought it would never stop, come crashing back down to $3,200, right? It seemed like the end of the world for a lot of people. But just like other things too also, it has a cycle. It came back up, it went back up to like $14,000, right? Came back down a little bit to like, well, when COVID hit, it went back down to like $4,000. But everything tanked in because the world was a big question mark. Nobody knew what was going on. But just to watch it go back in March from $4,000 up to, it ran all the way back up to 10 something, right? And now it's hanging around $9,200. It keeps my attention. It keeps my attention. I'm a active trader. I enjoy it. I've had success. I've had some downturns, but ultimately I've had some pretty good success. I I like the future of it, right? I think of myself as a early adopter, right? I don't see it as being something that's mainstream yet. Everybody knows the stock market exists, right? You can't talk to somebody and be like, oh man, what's the stock market, right? But I could go out here, out in the street right now and say, hey man, you heard about Bitcoin? I guarantee you, most of the people are going to be like, nah, maybe, but not really, right? I love the idea of it being kind of like catching the .com bubble, right, before it blew, right? And it blew, and I'm not saying that this is what this is going to be. I'm not saying there's going to be a bubble that's going to blow, but there was a lot of money made, a lot of capital that put a lot of people in great positions to move on to different things, right? This isn't my one basket. I don't necessarily put all my eggs in this, right? Like I said, I got property, I've got stocks, I've got bonds, I've got different things, right? I'm diversified, but yes, I'm very, very, very much bullish on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency.
Okay. So, is your approach with Bitcoin the same as it is roughly with stocks? You check it every day, or?
Yes, yeah. So like, I wake up. I have a routine, right? When I wake up in the morning, I check the markets. I check every market, right? I check Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency market. I check stocks. I see what the Dow's doing. I look at a lot of things in my early morning routine, right? And I pay as much attention to be real with you, I will take that back. I do pay a little bit more attention to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency because that is a larger part of my portfolio. I've got more to lose in that than I do in stocks, I feel like, if that makes sense. Like, I mean, anything can go wrong at any point in time. But like, there's measures that I put in place whenever I trade cryptocurrencies that I'm not necessarily able to do in certain platforms in stocks, right? I can put stop losses, right? If a price starts crashing and it drops below a certain point, stop loss kicks in and I sell out into a stable coin, which is pegged to the US dollar, right? So I'm not going to lose that regardless, right? So like whenever I trade on, say, like Robinhood, for instance, right? There's no stop loss that I'm aware of that I can put in place. If the market starts crashing all the way down, right? Because you got pre-market, you got after market close. A lot happens after the market close, and you wake up in pre-market, and it's just like, what the happened, right? So I like that aspect, and that there is no market close with cryptocurrency too. It's a 24/7, 24/7, right? I don't have to wait until 9 a.m. the next morning to make moves or do anything like that, or hope that somebody got my stuff in, right? Any kind of stuff, right? I am completely my own bank. I'm my own trader. I don't pay anybody else out on any kind of stuff. I do everything myself, and I keep track of my own portfolio and everything. I'm a little bit more in tune than just a basic trader, but I got a little bit invested in it. So yeah, I pay a little bit more attention than just like somebody that's like, I'm gonna throw in 25 here or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's as easy as Cash App. There's an app called Coinbase, which you were probably referring to. You can buy Bitcoin on Robinhood now. Like, there's so many different avenues that it's grown because they saw the demand back in 2017, because some of those platforms that you could get in on started to crash because the volume was just too much. So it birthed all these other things, and here we are today.
So for somebody that's interested in it, what resources would you recommend for them to start learning about it?
I would say YouTube can be good and bad, right? There's going to be, it's an open market, right? You're going to have good people putting out good information, and you're going to have bad people putting out bad information. And it's up to you to decipher what's good and bad. And if you don't know what it even is, then how are you to figure out what's good and bad?
Right.
But there is a lot of great information on YouTube, and that's kind of like where I found Bitcoin, was through YouTube, and then mutual friends, like-minded people, just kind of looking for different investments. What's the next thing that I can get in? Because that money sitting in the bank isn't going to do anything for you, right? You got to put it somewhere. So, like, talking to people that's like in the same like mind, we figured out that cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is pretty interesting. We should look at it. And that's kind of how I got into it. But I would say go to YouTube. There's a few pages on there. I'm not going to give anybody any shout outs just yet. But go type in Bitcoin, and I'll let you be your own judge, man. Do your own research. Don't just take anybody's word as bond. Take the information. Go to Google. Research. Do research.
Okay.
Start small. Do not, number one rule of investing, do not invest anything you're not willing to lose, all right? And that's how I started, $25. I'm not going to wake up in the morning and be like, oh, man, I lost $25. Because just like anything, it has a possibility to drop, right?
Right.
It's good advice.
One last question, though.
Yes, sir.
Damn, I forgot. But no, which platform you would say is best for somebody to buy their Bitcoin from?
I personally buy my Bitcoin on Cash App, just because of the ease of use. It has fees, but most of your entry platforms are going to give you fees anyways. Robinhood has fees. Coinbase has fees. Abra, right? It has fees. There's so many different ones that it's an entry point to Bitcoin, but they have fees.
So once you buy it on Cash App, how do you track it?
All right, so on Cash App, it literally has charts and everything like that. You can keep it on Cash App, but I transfer my Bitcoin to a offline cold storage wallet. It's called a Ledger.
That's what I was thinking about earlier, a wallet, when I said
Yeah.
have two different accounts.
Yeah, so that one is basically, it's like a safety deposit box. Digital safety deposit box. It's offline, can't be hacked unless you have it plugged in and somebody knows exactly your password and all your phrases, right? They got to know, it's like 12 or 14 different word phrases, and they got to know all of them, right? It takes a lot to be able to break in. I don't think, according to research, it's never been hacked into. So I keep all my Bitcoin and my cryptocurrency on those. Got a Ledger Nano S, Ledger Nano X. Buy it directly from Ledger. Don't go on eBay, Amazon trying to buy them, because people buy them on there and resell them on eBay and Amazon, but with malware on there too. All right, so buy it directly from Ledger. All right, be careful, because we're talking about real money now. All right.
Gotcha.
Any more questions, son?
I think that's
Joel?
There'll be more to add on this.
All right. Episode 4 is over.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap. Welcome to episode 5.
No break, nothing.
No break. Edit. We got the edit.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. All
Welcome
right.
to episode 5. We have Jordan.
I'm Joel. What we gonna talk about in episode 5?
We're going to talk about redlining.
We'll talk about racism in the real estate market.
Okay. Does it still exist? Redlining still exists?
Absolutely, man. They just don't call it redlining.
Or do
What do
it.
they call it?
They don't. It doesn't. It's a horse by no name, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically they walk in and they predetermine and they prejudge that, nah, he ain't getting this loan, or yeah, he'll get this loan, but it's going to be at this interest rate.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that too.
So that's basically your redlining that's going on.
Okay, let me ask you this. We stay in Metro Atlanta. The population is probably about 60 to 7% black
Mm-hmm.
in Metro Atlanta. So we see black black people in those positions that can get us the best interest rates or can work with us, willing to work with us because we are black. We have somebody that look like us. So would you say it's a better chance for people that's in the metro Atlanta area to get a better loan, a better interest rate, and not have to deal with redlining?
I will say, being in 2020, I personally feel like it is easier in some aspects to get a loan that's non-predatory, but at the same time, they aren't showing you certain things too, right? They're not going to show you certain houses. They're still not showing us certain neighborhoods, right? And if, say you find something on your own, right, and it comes out, oh man, it's in a contract. You don't ask any questions and you keep it pushing, right? Those are some of the things that are coming about that's in some of these neighborhoods. It's not necessarily that we're not getting approved for the loan. It's just that they're excluding us from certain conversations.
In metro Atlanta, you saying this happening?
In metro Atlanta,
Really?
yeah. In metro Atlanta. But, I mean, it's not happening as much in metro Atlanta as it is some of the other neighborhoods and some of the different parts of town. I think that we have progressed faster than certain areas because we have such a bigger foothold too also.
Right.
You have more educated, professional black people that have money in their pocket, right, that want to live in these certain neighborhoods. So it would hurt some businesses to keep them from living in these neighborhoods than it would be to have them there, to be real.
Yeah, and metro Atlanta do have black suburbs too, so right.
They have black suburbs. They do.
So that helps out a lot.
So, and what's funny is that you bring that up is that suburbs, right? Mm-hmm. So I was reading an article the other day and it was talking about how in certain neighborhoods, suburbs, that black people only live in those neighborhoods because white people no longer want to live there and they move to what's now called the exurbs, right? The exurbs are the farther out, the country where they get the big land, the big house, and all this stuff like that, because they no longer want to live in these neighborhoods because black people are moving in. So now it's like the turning over of reins. We're like, all right, I'm done with this neighborhood. You can have it now, right? And then they move out to here using their money, right? So they bought that land, sold it at a higher price, made money, took equity, bought even bigger land, bigger house, and it's just a cycle. It's just a cycle, according to this article. And I have to say, like, I agree with it because I've been there, right? I live in the suburbs. I'm one of a few black people that live in this nice neighborhood, right? And it's like, I see it somewhat here and there. I love my neighborhood and I love my neighbors too, but you can kind of see the attrition happening too, right?
Oh, really?
Houses start to pop up on the market, and it may not necessarily be because black people are moving in, but that market is just at a high, and they're like, man, let me take this money and run. Why is it at a high now? It's because, all right, I want you to be able to get out at this price, but when they try to get out, it's going to be at this price.
So why is that? Why is it when why is it when white folk are somewhere, whether it be houses or a new area, that we feel like that's where we want to be?
The school system. And that's my opinion. It's the school system, right? Because that's why I did it. I can only speak on me, right. But I did it because within the bubble that we wanted to live, my wife, she's a doctor, right? And she had to be here. I knew I wanted to live within a radius up there. So it'd be ease of use, commute and stuff like that. And at the same time, school district is much better up here than it is down there, right? And I wonder why, right? You know why, right? This because of the property taxes go in to fund the school systems in the neighborhoods that you live in, right?
Right.
That's why we moved to white neighborhoods. We want our children to have a better upbringing or better education than we had, right? That's just the way that we're built. We want our kids to have better than us, right? So we move out to these suburbs to be able to give them that education. But then over time, you see the attrition start to happen, and then that suburb turns into what you just left though too. Maybe not in such fast forward motion that you actually see it go from this to that, but over time, if you watch it, it happens. It happens.
So you say the where some of the people are leaving the suburbs now going to the exurbs.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, because to me it seems like we always try to follow the leader.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, wherever they are, that's where we're gonna want to be. So eventually, we'll be in the exurbs, and then they're gonna come back.
That's what gentrification is.
Right.
That's what gentrification is, right?
Hood, and then now everybody's complaining.
And that's the game, right? Well, I mean, all right. So say for instance, we live in Atlanta or Metro Atlanta, right?
Right.
If you look at some of the parts of town that no white person would ever want to live in, right? East Atlanta, right? EAV is probably one of the most hipster parts of town I've ever been in, right? Mm-hmm. It went from the hood, you couldn't catch a white person down there. They didn't want anything to do with it, right? To now it's like, that's the hot spot. You can't find a house down there for under $400K.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's
A
ridiculous.
townhouse gonna run you at least $350.
An apartment that look like the projects can run you about-
And that's what I'm saying. That's the game, right?
Right.
So we sold our property that we own down there for pennies. I guarantee you there's a house that went for $100K. Right?
less than that.
Right? Less than that probably, right? But I'm saying we'll put it at $100K. Come around this time next year, $400 or $500K. Somebody, I'm not gonna say who they are or who they might be, but not us, is coming in there, buying for pennies and selling at a much higher profit. And what do you do with that money?
Right.
You reinvest it into another property in that same neighborhood